Occasionally in this job you hear a story that is so gut-wrenchingly tragic that you wonder where people find the strength to get out of bed each day. That's how I felt when I met Stacey Keep and her husband Matthew. They lost their 23-month-old daughter Jessica during the Queensland floods. The raging water literally ripped the little girl out of Stacey's arms. There's nothing you can say or do to make things better, so we just listened. And we cried bucket loads. And we tried to focus on the little miracles of that dreadful day.
She's kicking pretty strong now, isn't she?
Stacey and Matthew Keep should be enjoying the impending arrival of their new baby.
It's scary, but
we'll get there. No,
we'll be there for her.
Yeah.
But how do you count your blessings when you've just been dealt the ultimate loss?
More dresses, Mommy, goes.
Barely 4 weeks ago, their little daughter Jessica was swept away in the most horrific, heart-wrenching moment of Queensland's flood disaster.
I had my baby girl in my arms. And then she was taken from me. And I thought it was only me that was left. I thought everybody was gone.
More cities. There's more cities.
I know that we'll get through this because we're a strong couple. But there'll always be something missing. Our lives were perfect before this all happened.
On that terrible afternoon, the floods not only claimed little Jess, but both Matt and Stacey's mothers, Pauline and Dawn. And when you see the footage of the wall of water that exploded into their home, you can only marvel at how they and their 2 other children, Madison and Jacob, survived. Miss Stace, that is your front door there. That looks like a bomb has hit it.
Yes.
God. Oh, my goodness me. This is what the water left of Matt and Stacey's dream home built just a year ago in the tiny railway town of Grantham in the Lockyer Valley.
Yeah, something we'd worked hard for, started off with nothing and worked our way up, had the Australian dream and end up with the Australian nightmare.
Once this was home to a busy growing family. 5-year-old Madison, 4-year-old Jacob and little Jessica, who was about to turn 2. Stacey's mum, Dawn, lived with them, and on the afternoon of the flood, Matt's mother, Pauline, was visiting. All were unaware of the disaster bearing down on them.
You could see the ground just disappearing as it was coming across the paddocks, like it had its own life force.
You're talking about it like it's a living beast of some kind.
Yeah,
it was. Like.
The power that it
the
packed,
sound.
It was just like it was alive, eh? It actually exploded into the house with such force and that we
exploded?
got... Yes. Yeah. The pressure behind it, the force with it, once them windows and that exploded.
The whole house was shattering around you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, for sure.
Matt and Stacey desperately gathered the 3 children in the kitchen. But then, another wave of water struck. Little Jacob was swept out of reach.
Jakey was caught up in the wave. He disappeared in the water. That was the last time I saw him.
A 4-year-old boy in that amount of water. Yeah, you wouldn't think he would have survived.
The grandmothers and little Madison had been separated from the rest of the family by the rising water. Matt found Stacey's mum, Dawn, clinging to a ride-on lawnmower in the garage. But by then, he was struggling to save himself.
There was no way I could help her either. That was just too hard and that.
Could you talk to her?
Yeah, I did. I said to her, I was so sorry, there's nothing I can do for you, Dawn. And that's when I got washed out of the garage, and that was the last thing she ever heard.
The raging torrent sucked Matt out of the garage and hurled him 200 metres down the road. Footage captured on the day shows him stranded on the neighbour's roof, fearing the rest of his family had been wiped out. What must have been going through your mind?
Well, first thing that went through my mind was if the water goes above the eaves, I jump in and go with my family, eh?
Stacey back in the house after Matt had been washed away. What were you doing in here?
I didn't know what to do. The water just kept coming.
But you couldn't have known what to do, could you?
No.
This was just so powerful.
Yes, like with me being, at that time, 25 weeks pregnant and having a 23-month-old baby in my arms and trying to get around in the water. It was just too hard.
Stacey held tight to little Jess, but was struggling to stay above the rising water. So she waited outside in search of higher ground.
I held onto this downpipe with her for about 5 minutes, and at that stage I was so tired I couldn't hold on any longer.
Stacey is exhausted. Clinging to little Jessica, she makes a very brave decision. She decides to let go of the house and take her chances in the water, but it's worse than she thought. It's a deep, raging torrent, and within seconds, she and Jessica are swept more than 1 kilometre down the rail line.
I couldn't fight it. It was impossible because I had to try and hold Jessie up above the water so she wouldn't go under.
How did you do that? And how did you try and do that? I can't imagine.
Well, a lot of the time I went under so she could be above the water. I just held her so her head was above my head at all times so she wouldn't get the water.
Then, the cruelest blow of all.
This is where I would have got stuck with her and we got held under the water.
And your leg was trapped under one of the sleepers or the rail line here.
Yes. All I know is I couldn't move. I couldn't move. And yeah, the force of the water just kept coming, and at that point I didn't know what to do. And so the water just swept her out of my arms.
God, that's just a terrible moment. You did absolutely everything you could have. You fought as long and as hard as you could to hang on to your little girl.
Still, if only. I'll never forget it. That feeling, having your own child swept away from your arms and there's nothing you can do. It's a piece of my heart that's missing and I'll never get it back.
At that devastating moment, Stacey thought she'd lost everyone and everything she loved. But what she didn't know was back in the submerged house. Madison and Jacob were unbelievably alive.
And the water was wee high.
The water was way high, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I was wee under.
You were under?
Yeah.
How was that? Were you okay?
No, I just this was it.
You held your nose.
Yeah.
Turns out, Jake had been swept into his parents' shower and somehow managed to hold on. Were you standing like that?
Yeah.
Were you really? Did you shout out to anyone?
Yeah, I was.
What did you say?
Yeah, I was crying.
Oh, I reckoned that's okay.
I was just crying for Daddy and Mummy.
Yeah. It was a bit scary, wasn't it, eh?
Yeah.
But you were really brave.
Yeah, and the water stepped Granny and Grandma and Jessie.
There's lots of rubbish around, isn't there? Both grandparents had died in the deluge. But the waters rose for another 2 hours as the children hung on alone. Jacob in the bathroom and Maddie floating on a couch wedged under the ceiling, calling out to each other for support and encouragement.
And I was saying, Jacob, Daddy's coming. That was good to tell him when Daddy was coming.
You're a very good girl. You were making sure your brother was okay.
Yeah, and not to go out the shower.
Meanwhile, at the railway line, a shattered Stacey had all but given up, when suddenly a shift in the water freed her and she was able to scramble to safety. And at that moment, she turned and saw Matt on the rooftop within shouting distance. Both thought they'd lost everything, but now had each other. What was that moment like?
Happy but sad at the same time, because I know when like I would see him, I'd have to tell him that I failed.
You didn't fail. There's no way you failed. You tried your absolute hardest in the worst of conditions. And you fought to the very end. Matt, you didn't fail.
No. No one failed that day. No one did. We all did our best, eh?
At last, Matt was airlifted to safety from the neighbour's roof and was finally able to make his way back to the house to find, incredibly, Jacob and Maddie were also still alive. The family survivors could be reunited.
It was absolutely amazing.
Then to suddenly have 2 children in your arms.
Yeah. The best feeling ever. Best feeling ever.
I bet you didn't want to let go of that little guy.
No, I don't think he wanted to leave go his mother either. Yes, they just held on and they knew that Jessie was gone, and Jakey's like, the water took Jessie away, and I said, yes.
Jacob said that?
Yeah. He said the naughty water.
In the heartbreaking aftermath, Matt and Stacey are left to wonder how different things could have been if they'd been warned of the coming danger. Why weren't there warnings?
That's something we will find out, Michael, eh? That's something that does need to be answered. You know, they evacuated people out of town on Sunday night before this, eh? No one come to evacuate anyone this day, eh?
If you'd had just a few minutes warning.
5 minutes would have been enough.
5.
Oh, probably 2. 2.
Matter of minutes.
Minutes.
Lost minutes that cost a young family so dearly.
I just hope the 2 grandmas are looking after our little girl now, wherever they are. We'll catch up one day.
Does that help you, Stacey?
Yes. Knowing that Jessie's with her two grandmothers that she loved so much. Yeah. It makes you feel a little bit better.
Will you come back here?
Not here. Already made a promise to little Jakey that we'll build on a hill.
High up on a hill?
High up on a hill.
So how was school today, Madison?
They'll rebuild in Grantham and rebuild their lives as well. A new beginning that will start with the birth of a baby daughter in April. This one's a fighter too.
Yeah.
And it's a little girl?
Yes, yes, it's... Yeah.
This, of course, came as a huge shock, and William and I have been doing everything we can to process and manage this privately for the sake of our young family.
The heartbreaking truth from the Princess of Wales.
Everyone facing this disease, you are not alone.
What a great woman to be able to sit and do that. The Middleton women are strong.
Coming up on 60 Minutes. Kate asked for privacy. Will she get it?
Hopefully this will put an end to it.
The world reacts
It's our monarchy, it's our royal family. We are protective.
to Kate's devastating news.
Get better, get strong, and make a triumphant return.
Next.